Dr. Gottlieb, let's talk about the White House announcement that it is looking at these 5 companies. I think it was Moderna, the Harvard study that was at the Harvard one that's being done, and then 3 of the big drug companies, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and I forget the third of the big companies. What does this mean in terms of all the other companies that are still out there trying to do vaccine delivery? Does it make it much less likely that they're going to be able to come up with anything, or does this mean this is just the ones we're putting our best hopes behind and maybe additional funding? How would you interpret that announcement?
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're going to prioritize clinical trial access for these first 5 vaccines. And so these are going to be large clinical trials, anywhere from 10 to 15,000 patients in an active arm for each vaccine, against probably a standard control arm of about 15,000 patients. And so you're talking about trying to enroll 50 to 75,000 patients, maybe. I think what surprised me most about the selection of the vaccines that they made was they chose 3 viral vector vaccines. So an adenoviral vector vaccine from Merck, one from AstraZeneca, and then an Indiana virus from Merck, and then an adenoviral vector from J&J and AstraZeneca, and then 2 mRNA platforms, one from Pfizer, the company I'm on the board of, and the other from Moderna. There's no sort of old-style technology in this mix, and I'm surprised that either Sanofi or Novavax, someone who's developing sort of an older approach using a protein-based vaccine, wasn't selected. Because if you want to spread your bets, you probably want to spread your bets across different platforms, and they chose very novel platforms. That's not to say these won't be successful, but they're all novel platforms. Only one of them has been used before to make a vaccine, and that's the Merck platform, and the only vaccine that was made with that platform was the one for Ebola.
Right. Just following on that, though, I'm looking at all these other companies that have had their stocks run up because people are very optimistic that they would be part of this race, too. From an investor's standpoint, if you can't get prioritized as the clinical trials, how much less likely does that mean that you are in terms of being able to get a vaccine to market quickly?
I think it's an impediment because clinical trial access is going to be a critical issue heading into the fall. It's going to be hard to enroll these trials, and it's going to be hard to know where to enroll them, where to get patients who are likely to come into contact with the infection, because we don't know where the outbreaks are going to be. And so if the NIH, in concert with these companies, locks up a lot of the early clinical trial sites, enrolling patients in a trial outside of these 50,000 or 75,000 who are going to be enrolled in these initial trials, assuming all of these make it into phase 3, and that's not clear that they all will yet, whether they'll all get into pivotal trials, but assuming they do, that's going to lock up a lot of the clinical trial availability. And so any other vaccine that wants to develop it is going to have to look ex-U.S. Some of these smaller companies won't have the capacity to do that, or have to wait until some of these clinical trial sites start to free up and this first tranche, this first wave of vaccinations through this trial network that they're establishing has run through. So it's going to be more challenging to move quickly for any of the other vaccine manufacturers. It's really prioritizing these first 5. And one of the reasons they prioritized them was because they were the furthest along. I don't know where Sanofi was and Novavax that had the protein vaccines that I'm talking about. I singled them out, and there's a lot of companies in the mix here, but I singled them out because they appeared to be pretty far along as well. I would have thought that they would have been equidistant with these other manufacturers, or at least close enough that they could have been included if, in fact, the government wanted to include a protein-based approach in this initial mix.